most states, it is generally not legal or ethical to advertise a license number on a business card for a business that is not licensed under that number. Consider the licensing requirements. In Florida, a state-certified general contractor license is required to engage in construction activities. A license holder can only qualify one business with their license unless they go before the licensing board. Permits for construction work must be pulled under the business name associated with the qualified license holder. Now consider the permissible use of the license number. The license number can be used to qualify a single business or company. It can also be used to advertise the services of that qualified business. Consulting services may not require a license, depending on the specific nature of the services being provided. Now consider a case of the consultant. The consultant, in this case, has a CGC license number attached to a construction company. It is not legal for him to advertise that license number on a business card for a separate consulting business that is not licensed under his CGC number. This is because he is effectively implying that the consulting business is qualified under his license, which is not the case. Using a license number for an unqualified business can mislead customers and the public. It can also be seen as an attempt to circumvent licensing requirements. It can potentially harm the reputation of the licensing board and the construction industry as a whole. If you are concerned about the use of a license number for an unqualified business, you should report it to the appropriate licensing board. Be cautious when hiring contractors and always verify that they are licensed and qualified for the work they are performing. If you have any questions about the use of license numbers, contact the licensing board for guidance. Understanding the nuances of contractor licensing is crucial for maintaining ethical and legal practices within the construction industry. When a licensed contractor uses their license to qualify a business, they are essentially vouching for that company's competence and adherence to industry standards. This qualification allows the company to obtain the necessary permits and undertake projects that require a licensed professional. However, the scope of this qualification is typically limited to a single business entity, preventing the contractor from simultaneously qualifying multiple companies without explicit approval from the licensing board. The primary reason for this restriction is to ensure accountability and prevent the dilution of responsibility. If a contractor were allowed to qualify multiple businesses without proper oversight, it could create opportunities for substandard work, financial mismanagement, and other unethical practices. By limiting the number of businesses a contractor can qualify, licensing boards can better monitor the activities of each company and hold the contractor accountable for any violations. In Florida, as in many other states, the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, or DBPR, oversees the licensing and regulation of contractors. The DBPR sets forth specific requirements for obtaining and maintaining a contractor's license, including educational qualifications, examination requirements, and continuing education obligations. These requirements are designed to ensure that licensed contractors possess the necessary knowledge, skills, and experience to perform their work safely and competently. When a contractor applies for a license, they must specify the business entity that they will be qualifying. This information is then recorded in a DBPR's database, making it publicly accessible to consumers and other stakeholders. When a consumer searches for a contractor's license on the DBPR website, they can see the name of the business that the contractor is qualified to operate under. This transparency helps consumers make informed decisions about who to hire for their construction project. It is important to note that the restrictions on qualifying multiple businesses typically apply to general contracting licenses, which authorize the holder to perform a wide range of construction activities. Some specialized licenses, such as electrical or plumbing licenses, may have different rules regarding qualification. Additionally, some states may allow contractors to qualify multiple businesses if they obtain special permission from the licensing board. However, this permission is usually granted only in exceptional circumstances and is subject to strict conditions. When a contractor advertises their license number, they are essentially representing to the public that they are qualified to perform the work being advertised. If the contractor is advertising on behalf of a business that they are not qualified to operate under, it can be misleading and deceptive. Consumers may be led to believe that the business has the necessary expertise and qualifications when, in fact, it does not. This can result in shoddy workmanship, safety hazards, and financial losses for consumers. In addition to being unethical, advertising a license number for an unqualified business can also be illegal. Many states have laws that prohibit false or misleading advertising, and these laws can be enforced against contractors who violate them. The penalties for violating these laws can include fines, suspension of the contractor's license, and even criminal charges. Consulting services, on the other hand, may not always require a contractor's license, depending on the specific nature of the services being provided. If a consultant is simply providing advice or guidance without actually performing any construction work, they may not need to be licensed. However, if the consultant is involved in the design, supervision, or coordination of construction projects, they may be required to have a contractor's license or other relevant professional license. It is important for consultants to understand the licensing requirements in their jurisdiction and to ensure that they are in compliance with all applicable laws and regulations. When a consultant advertises their services, they should be careful not to misrepresent their qualifications or expertise. They should clearly state the scope of their services and avoid making any claims that they cannot substantiate. They should also be transparent about their licensing status and any limitations on their ability to perform certain types of work. If a consultant is working with a contractor who is not properly licensed, they should advise the contractor to obtain the necessary licenses before proceeding with the project. They should also report any suspected violations of licensing laws to the appropriate authorities. By adhering to these ethical and legal guidelines, consultants can help to ensure that construction projects are completed safely and competently. If you have concerns about the use of a license number for an unqualified business, you should report it to the appropriate licensing board. The licensing board has the authority to investigate complaints and take disciplinary action against contractors who violate licensing laws. When reporting a complaint, you should provide as much information as possible, including the name of the contractor, the name of the business, the license number, and the description of the alleged violation. You should also provide any supporting documentation, such as business cards, advertisements, or contracts. The licensing board will review your complaint and determine whether there is sufficient evidence to warrant an investigation. If an investigation is warranted, the board will gather information from all parties involved and make a determination as to whether a violation has occurred. If a violation is found, the board may impose penalties such as fines, suspension of the contractor's license, or revocation of the license. In addition to reporting complaints to the licensing board, you can also take other steps to protect yourself from unqualified contractors. Before hiring a contractor, you should always verify that they are properly licensed and insured. You can check the contractor's license status on the licensing board's website. You should also ask the contractor for proof of insurance, including general liability insurance and workers' compensation insurance. You should also check the contractor's references and read online reviews. This will give you a better understanding of the contractor's reputation and the quality of their work. You should also get a written contract before starting any construction project. The contract should clearly state the scope of the work, the price, the payment schedule, and the timeline for completion. It should also include provisions for resolving disputes. By taking these precautions, you can reduce the risk of hiring an unqualified contractor and ensure that your construction project is completed safely and successfully. The use of contractor license numbers is a serious matter that requires careful attention and adherence to ethical and legal guidelines. By understanding the licensing requirements in your jurisdiction and taking steps to protect yourself from unqualified contractors, you can help to maintain the integrity of the construction industry and ensure that construction projects are completed safely and competently. In the context of project management, construction supervision, and inspections, the proper use of a contractor's license becomes even more critical. Project managers and construction supervisors are responsible for ensuring that all work is performed in compliance with applicable codes and regulations. They must also verify that all contractors and subcontractors working on a project are properly licensed and insured. Inspectors, on the other hand, are responsible for ensuring that construction projects meet the required standards for safety and quality. They must be able to identify potential hazards and defects and to enforce compliance with building codes. In order to effectively perform these roles, project managers, construction supervisors, and inspectors must have a thorough understanding of contractor licensing requirements. They must also be able to identify situations where a contractor may be violating licensing laws. For example, if a project manager discovers that a subcontractor is advertising their services using a license number that is not associated with their business, they should immediately report this to the appropriate authorities. They should also take steps to ensure that the subcontractor is not allowed to continue working on the project until they have obtained the necessary licenses. Similarly, if an inspector discovers that a contractor has performed work that is not in compliance with building codes, they should issue a stop work order and require the contractor to correct the deficiencies before proceeding with the project. By taking these actions, project managers, construction supervisors, and inspectors can help to protect the public from unqualified contractors and ensure that construction projects are completed safely and competently. The licensing board plays a crucial role in regulating the construction industry and protecting consumers from unqualified contractors. The board is responsible for setting licensing requirements, administering examinations, investigating complaints, and taking disciplinary action against contractors who violate licensing laws. The board also provides guidance to consumers and contractors on licensing matters. Consumers can contact the board to verify the license status of a contractor or to file a complaint. Contractors can contact the board to obtain information about licensing requirements or to seek clarification on licensing regulations. The licensing board is an important resource for both consumers and contractors, and it is essential to have a strong and effective board in order to maintain the integrity of the construction industry. One of the key challenges facing licensing boards is keeping up with the ever-changing landscape of the construction industry. New technologies, materials, and construction methods are constantly being developed, and the board must ensure that its licensing requirements reflect these changes. The board must also be vigilant in detecting and preventing unlicensed activity. Unlicensed contractors often perform substandard work, put consumers at risk, and undermine the integrity of the construction industry. The board works closely with law enforcement agencies to investigate and prosecute unlicensed contractors. In addition to its regulatory functions, the licensing board also plays an important role in promoting education and training in the construction industry. The board sponsors workshops and seminars for contractors and consumers on topics such as building codes, safety regulations, and contract law. The board also supports apprenticeship programs and other training initiatives that help to develop a skilled workforce in the construction industry. By promoting education and training, the licensing board helps to ensure that construction projects are completed safely and competently. The legal and ethical considerations surrounding contractor licensing are complex and multifaceted. It is essential for contractors, consultants, project managers, construction supervisors, inspectors, and consumers to understand these considerations in order to ensure that construction projects are completed safely, legally, and ethically. By working together, we can create a construction industry that is characterized by integrity, competence, and professionalism.